Welcome back to our very interesting talk with Professor Dr. Richard Tarnas, Emeritus from California Institute of Integral Studies. Now, in the second talk, we will talk about the scientific research in archetypal cosmology in his personal biography and nowadays worldwide. Let's go back to 1992 when you became professor in CIIS. What were your lectures in those days? Did you lecture Passion of the Western Mind, or did you already start talking about archetypal cosmology in your lectures and courses?
Yeah, so I actually became a professor in 1993. So it's 30 years ago this year. And I mean, I had given lectures at universities before then, including at CIS, and I'd also I had also sat on dissertation committees, for doctoral students, but I had not started as a full-time professor until 1993. And when I first came, I expected I would be teaching more just on the history of philosophy type of course that is more similar to Passion of the Western Mind, which, by the way, as you probably know, there's a German translation of the Passion of the Western Mind.
Yes.
And they have a slightly different Leidenschaft. I'm trying to remember the German title of it. But in any case, I thought that's what I was going to do, and that's what I started. But in the Bay Area of California in the 1990s, there was a very strong interest among both the students and the faculty in the research that Stanislav Grof and I had done starting in the 1970s at Esalen Institute, which pointed to correlations between psychological states, including those in special, Stanislav Grof was one of the founders of transpersonal psychology. He was a Czech psychiatrist who, beginning in the 1950s, started working with LSD in psychotherapy. And he became, right, there's a Festschrift that I co-edited in honor of Stanislav Grof. It has a number of excellent essays in it from Joseph Campbell and Houston Smith, Ralph Metzner, Fritjof Capra, and so forth. And so Stan Grof and I, neither of us both of us were skeptical about astrology, but we discovered, kind of to our both to our surprise and almost like, as Stan said later, that the one thing that illuminates the timing and the character of people's psychological experience, especially in things like psychedelic experiences like LSD sessions and therapy, the one thing that illuminated what kinds of experiences people would have, given the fact that you can have so many different kinds of experiences with the exact same substance, that it turned out to be this one method that helped us understand this. Astrology was as controversial as psychedelics and LSD. Just one of those. So
I can help you there. If the viewers go to the talk with Chris Brennan, you talk with Chris Brennan in length about what Stan Grof and Richard Tarnas experienced and how they became aware how important astrology was for their research. So we don't have to repeat that here. Now let's come back to.
Okay, so just to finish answering your question, then, what happened was that there was so much interest in that research and in the possibility that astrology, when joined with psychology, depth psychology, Jungian psychology, etc., that bringing those two together would be quite helpful for understanding the psyche, understanding also psychotherapy, but also illuminating the patterns of history. And so I was asked to teach, or Stan Groff and I co-taught a course starting in early '94, January 1994, which was the first of the graduate seminars that presented this research. And it was the most popular course in the school. And as time passed, every year I would basically, half of my classes would be more traditional academic, focused on philosophy, history of science, history of religion, etc. And then the other half would be courses that brought archetypal astrology into dialogue with psychology, the study of history, the study of philosophy, and so forth, because they're mutually illuminating. That's the unexpected thing. If you study deeply astrology and you study deeply another field like philosophy or psychology or history, each one helps us understand the other. We understand, for example, in the history of philosophy, the great controversy between the nominalists and the realists in the medieval period, which helped shape the modern mind. That was a controversy about whether archetypes exist or not. And then the fact that they, after being excluded from modern thought in the early part of for much of the modern period, and then Jung recovers that notion of the archetype because of his deep psychological explorations. And so he brings a more psychological understanding of Plato's archetypes in a way that has been very, very helpful. So we constantly find a mutual illumination between astrology and other fields.
And how does PCC come into a picture in that time frame?
Well, I was asked to begin a new program that could bring a multidisciplinary approach to understanding our current worldview and the evolution of worldviews in history, so that we could have a better foundation for transforming our worldview into one that would be more life-enhancing than the somewhat destructive mainstream modern attitude towards nature, towards the human being, etc., that has been, helped lead us to the crisis of our planet today. So I was asked to start this program, and I brought in a number of prominent academics to join it. Brian Swim, the cosmologist, and Charlene Spretnak, a feminist philosopher and ecologist. Stan Groff, of course, was part of it. Joanna Macy, and people like Fritjof Capra, Rupert Sheldrake, and so forth would come and give lectures for our course.
I believe you had Glenn Perry integrated into that program.
Very briefly, he did possibly one course, or I think it was just one course. It was a bit of it wasn't a good fit for us.
Next question. In this PCC graduate program, either master or PhD, is there a course how to learn to delineate a horoscope?
Yes. Well, the focus in there's a number of major courses that integrate astrology, and particularly archetypal astrology, which has this strong connection to the depth psychology tradition that comes out of Freud and Jung and Groff, William James, and so forth. But it also has a connection to the Platonic and Pythagorean tradition as well. So there's certain key principles of archetypal astrology that on the one hand are, I think, essential to the whole astrological tradition, but have come into more, there's certain important principles that archetypal astrology as a school or as an orientation really emphasizes. For example, the major focus on the planetary archetypes and on their alignments or aspects, those are especially important, more important than houses or signs for understanding both history and deep psychological experience in our research.
Basically, you are saying what the people learning in the PCC program is not to counsel clients after they have their diploma. For that, they have to do some additional training with Kepler College or other service offerings. In CIS, PCC, you are not an astrologer after you finish the program.
That's right. I mean, when people come through the program, a surprising number of them have gone on to, some go on to become professors of philosophy or editors of journals in eco-psychology or something like that. But quite a good number of students, after going through the program, getting their master's degree or even their PhD, they continue to work with astrology and actually have become astrological counselors, or in a couple cases, several cases, professors of at graduate schools where they incorporate astrology into the curriculum. So yes,
that gives the intro to the scientific field, the research field of archetypal cosmology. When you started, you were one professor. Your chair had the denomination philosophy, cosmology, and consciousness in this PCC program. How many professors like you, being an emeritus now, in those days when you were at PCC, how many professors exist in America, and where are they located to create this community of research in archetypal cosmology?
Well, most of the altogether, over the years, there's probably been, because hundreds of students have graduated from our program over these 30 years, and quite a few of them integrated archetypal astrology into their worldview, into their, they may not be astrological counselors, they may not be professors that teach astrology, but they continue to do research. They can be people like Kyle Leimetter, who started the program called Archetypal Explorer, which is online, where you can get your transits calculated for you each week, every month, etc., and shows you the range, the orb that certain transits are happening and things like that. So many people, probably 70 or more people over the years have been part of, doing this kind of research. We share it informally with each other. The Archive journal that you pointed to earlier is a place where some of the work has been published, but it's now in terms of professors who are teaching it, there's Kieran LeGrice, who is both the professor and the chair of a program in Jungian depth psychology and I think archetypal studies, something like that. I can't remember the department name, but that's at Pacifica Graduate Institute in in Santa Barbara, California. That's also a graduate school that specializes in the depth psychology tradition coming from Jung, Marie-Louise von Franz, James Hillman, and so forth.
Okay,
So,
if
yes.
you take this field of research, a scientific academic field, archetypal cosmology, and you compare it to your friend Professor Wouter Hanegraaff in Amsterdam, who has his chair of Hermetic philosophy and history of Hermeticism, they founded an international organization around that chair. How far away is the research field archetypal cosmology to create a comparable academic organization worldwide?
That's a good question. Yeah, Wouter Hanegraaff and his colleagues, and I've been a colleague of his, and we've done conferences together at Esalen Institute, for example. Wonderful man, Wouter, and he is overseeing a field that was, I think, particularly initiated in the 20th century by Antoine Fevre in France, and
esotericism and academic.
Yes, and you see in that the frame of reference with which the esoteric traditions are being studied in those kinds of programs is one in which it's not necessarily that you are endorsing the esoteric worldview, rather you're studying it as a kind of historian or as a scientist, as a sociologist, etc., and you're tracking belief systems, or you're seeking to understand the influence of different esoteric schools on, say, the history of science, for example. And so in all those ways, even though esoteric studies has been and still is to some extent somewhat controversial within the academic world, but it is still intellectually more defensible within the contemporary academic climate, because you're studying it from outside. You're not studying it from inside.
You are doing this different because you are a believer in archetypal cosmology.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so much believer as I practice it. And it's a living reality for me. So it's not so much.
Out of your,
go ahead. What were you saying?
Out of your life.
That's right. It's kind of like when Jung was asked, towards the end of his life, that famous interview where he was asked, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, "Well, no, not believe, but I know."
Yes.
Yeah, it's more of a direct experience. It's not something that, okay, I believe that the I believe that it's going to be a sunny day tomorrow, but I don't know for sure, that kind of, this is more like a daily experience of its reality.
Yes. Being an emeritus professor, how far are you still involved with the CIS and PCC?
I'm still pretty involved. Many of the current faculty there are people who studied with me, and that's another reason to become an emeritus and retire, is to let a new generation, come into their own. So we've got just wonderful faculty members there now.
Your chair still existing? Is your chair that you had, a tenured chair, is that with a new person?
Okay, we use the word chair a little different. There's two meanings of chair academically. One is if you are the chair of a program, it's like you're the director of the program.
Okay. No, I mean in the European sense, the chair is the professor who has the chair of in your
right. Yeah. We did. I did not have an official chair like that. I was the chair of the program, the director the program director, the department, the chair of the department, we would say, the chair of the academic department.
Tenure.
Oh, I had tenure, but you don't have, it wasn't, my courses were across many fields. I wasn't just chair of archetypal cosmology.
The difference in educational systems, America and Germany, because we have always chair people, and they make the faculty, and they all have chairs.
Yeah, we don't all have chairs. We have full-time appointments as a professor, which is, and so, but getting back more to the essence of your question, we do have, well, several of the the current faculty members, like Sean Kelly, for example, has published in Archive Journal, very insightful essay on archetypal astrology and understanding the teleological aspect of history. It's an excellent essay. Now, Sean Kelly's been a professor for 25 years in our program, and while that's not his main subject that he is teaching, he knows it well, and he can draw on it, and you know, he can integrate it into his discussion, and that's true of other faculty members there too, like Matt Siegel. But there is one person, Becca Tarnas, who does teach both courses on Jung, on Stanislav Groth's work, but also on archetypal astrology and cosmology. So she's a full-time professor now.
She's a professor now.
Yes.
Congratulations, Becca Tarnas.
Yeah, that appointment was made last spring. I didn't have anything to do with it, I'm proud to say. It was a national search was done for someone who could continue the kinds of work that I and others had done, and in the philosophy, cosmology, and consciousness program, and she was chosen as the best candidate.
Can you tell me, I tried to find out her dissertation, her PhD thesis, the red books, the two red books. It's still not published as a book, right?
It's published, you know, and yeah, she's been too busy teaching courses to put it into a book form, but she does plan to do that. In the meantime, though, you can read it if you want.
I have a private PDF from her from years ago.
Okay.
And now my last question. How does academia in the United States react to the existence of PCC? Are you tolerated? Are you the enemy of the mainstream? How is the academia circumstances for PCC?
You know, it's kind of surprising because I've been fortunate in, you know, I've been invited to speak at different universities over the years, and I think because, you know, for one thing, we're located in California in the Bay Area, and there's a certain openness to new perspectives, new paradigms. That's part of the cultural climate that we live in here, and that was true. It was actually that was true even at Harvard in the late 1960s. Since then, when I was there as a student, in fact, it was a professor at Harvard who had been trained by Jung. He was a Swiss professor, Hans Hofmann, who first in conversations with me suggested that astrology was a valuable way of understanding the psyche, and I wasn't ready to hear it at that point. I was very skeptical.
The story in one of your former talks, but how is the situation? Is there an animosity in the mainstream academia, or are you an accepted institution?
Oh, we're an accredited, accepted institution, and you know we
The
uh,
skeptics in the United States are not attacking you.
no, I mean we've been fortunate, and I think partly that's because we are doing many things at our school. Half of the school is training psychotherapists for professionally, and we have a very excellent reputation as a professional psychology school. But also in terms of philosophy, for example, I don't know if you know who the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead is, but Whitehead is becoming more and more of a um, highly regarded philosopher within the both European and American philosophical world, and uh, and so the and we have one of the best Whiteheadian philosophers in the world right now teaching in our PCC program. That's Matthew Siegel, and so
Let's come to a private last question. You being living archetypal cosmology in your life, and then you're looking back at how you got from Harvard to Esalen, then to your experience finding astrology. You wrote the book Passion of the Western Mind, and you wrote the book Cosmos and Psyche. Did you ever analyze the astrological horoscopes on those different dates, how the archetypes organize your life?
oh, very much. I'll just give one example. When the day that I entered Esalen Institute, and not knowing at that point that it was going to be where I would, live and work and study and raise a family and everything for the next decade and so on. Totally transformational community that I entered into there in Big Sur, California. Met Stanislav Grof the first night that I got there, and also the mother of my first child, and really what became kind of my learning community. That was on March 3rd, 1974. And on that date, I didn't know any astrology at that point. But in retrospect, when I looked at my transits and what was going on in the world transit, I could not have picked a better day. I mean, there was like 2 grand trines going on.
You are doing this retrospectively, and you are basically you are saying it was written in your horoscopes. What you
okay. I think the qualities of experience are evident in the horoscope. For example, there was a grand trine at that point in the sky of Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Uranus were in a grand trine, and they were right forming they were right on my sun trine Uranus, which happened to be at the midheaven and the ascendant. So there was a grand trine on my sun Uranus trine and my angles. That was I was born in Geneva, Switzerland, so my midheaven and my ascendant at that time of year are in an exact trine. So that remarkable set of transits that I had once in a lifetime suggests that I would have an experience of a sudden opening of new horizons that would perhaps be very fundamental. But it did not write.
I have to shorten you because of time. I think we got the message. You look retrospectively, and you are confirmed that the archetypes were doing this sort of.
They were opening up a qualitative field of that exactly fit what I went through. But I think but Volker, I think there are karmic factors, for example, that come into it.
But you had the free will to fill it out.
That's right. And also, the fact that I would connect with, say, Stanislav Grof, who I think had it looks like we have 10 more minutes, so I think we're okay. the fact that I would meet certain people who would become very important to me for that time, or really for my whole life. That I think there's a karmic dimension that comes into play in relationship to the archetypal astrological. You see how they come together. You can have multiple causal factors at work. The same thing. We each have a genetic foundation, but how that genetic foundation expresses itself in this individual or that individual is going to be affected by what kind of upbringing they have, the environment that they grow up in, choices that they make about smoking or not smoking, or etc. So it is an important. The archetypal astrological perspective gives us a perspective on what powerful factors are helping to shape our lives, but they don't tell us exactly how it's going to come out, because we have free will, and there's also other factors that are playing a role, like environment, family, and our own choices in life that direct us to enact those archetypes in one way or another.
So did I cover your position on what is an archetype and what is free will in this talk sufficiently?
I think the one thing I would add is that I think it's important to recognize that astrology is always evolving. It's just like religion has always been evolving. They take different forms in different eras, historical eras, in different societies, and it enacts, like, astrology is very characteristic of many worldviews of past societies, past culture, past eras. But at some periods in our history, the sense was that the gods or the stars are determining our lives in like a fate, like in a kind of destiny that cannot be worked with at all, and that free will is minimized, and the astrological determinism becomes a kind of inevitable fate. That was widely viewed. That's how astrology, even you can read in textbooks, like, oh, if the person has this planet in that house, at this time of year, they are going to die early or something like that. And one of the things about our time, our era, the modern era, helped build up a sense of personal agency, of autonomy, of a capacity for our individual will and reason to play a role in shaping our own lives. Okay. And that was actually magnified. That sense of human freedom and self-responsibility was magnified in the modern worldview by negating astrology because of astrology's fatalistic side. So now we come back into relationship to the archetypal powers, particularly through the work of Jung and depth psychology. We're in a better position now to relate to the anima mundi as a participant rather than as a puppet.
So, coming to the end, thank you to Professor Dr. Richard Tarnas, Emeritus of CIIS, and thank you to our viewers. Until next time, I stop the recording.